See the first one here? Is that how that happened?
Every week.
Every week. I was going to have you go ahead and knock on the table while I ask this question so that people don't think I'm jinxing your football team. But I don't care if it's Darren Sproles or who it is, but to lose only one fumble on 209 rushing attempts, it's got to be pretty remarkable. What is the sense of pride that, and it's not only just with one running back, you got 4 guys that have carried at least 20 times this season. What is the sense of pride among the guys that took the ball in not losing fumbles and just the discipline and dedication that go along with that in order to be turnover free in that regard?
Well, you answered your own question. You know, I truly do. I think it's just a matter of discipline, and that comes from, you know, their coaches instilling that discipline, drilling, you know, things that are germane to that. And you're absolutely right. I don't appreciate you putting us in a position to be jinxed either. But they work at it, you know, and have the right attitude about it.
You never knocked on your table, though, so.
Wait till next Monday or Tuesday, whatever this day is.
And then also on Colin, just the poise and his decision making, 94 passing attempts and only 2 picks. Apparent maturity on his part. What kind of mindset does he have now, even going on the road and being able to overcome adverse situations without creating a constant turnover?
Well, I think it's, you know, as far as his mindset, if that's the question, you know, I think it's the same all the time. You know, nothing different than, you know, than what we've expressed in here, you know, so many times. I think he's focused. He understands, you know, what his responsibilities are and how he needs to handle those responsibilities, and managing the football is equally as important to him and to our team as it is for running backs, etc. He understands that, works on it. So just he's no different today than he was a week ago today.
Hi, Coach.
Hello there.
A couple questions that tie into preparing for Iowa State. When you're preparing, is it more valuable to assess their game against TCU, or maybe even looking back toward OSU last year? And I was just wondering, how do you make those kind of decisions?
Well, we assess everything. So we've during the spring of the year, we have a period of time where we go back and assess all of the teams that we're going to play. Then in the spring or in the summer, we do exactly the same thing. Then we have all that accumulated in our preparation now. So indeed, we've gone back and looked at all of Iowa State's ball games, as we would any opponent. Looked at all their ball games from last year. Pay attention to our ball game with them last year, and assess all the games that they have played up to this point in time, their 5 ball games this year. Don't put any greater emphasis on one than the other, knowing that, you know, we can't, you can't really project what someone else is going to do. So you have to prepare for, you know, all of it and as much of it as you possibly can. You know, certainly you have things that you feel like you might see more frequently than others, but you have to prepare for all of it. But that's part of the process that is true for any team that we would play, and you find that there's similarities in all teams that you play. So, you know, while you're working against one team, you're also inadvertently preparing for another team, and all that adds up over a period of time.
Coach, with as good as your guys' turnover margin is, Iowa State last year was worse than the Big 12. This year they're 7th, so not quite at the bottom, but still kind of struggling in that regard. When you watch them on tape, what kind of weaknesses do you see in them that might allow you guys to take advantage in that way?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of weaknesses. They'd had, of those turnovers, 9 of them were interceptions, and they've replaced their quarterback. So that, I think that takes 8 of them off the board. So I think they've, made a decision that kind of changes those numbers dramatically. And if you do that, then, it's not nearly as it appeared to be. So, I've, in all reality, I mean, if you watch them play, you don't see, other than the interceptions that the other young quarterback threw, you don't see much in the way of turnovers. I mean, they've had, I think, 3 fumbles that they've lost, and that's playing 5 ball games. That's a reasonably good number.
Coach, I'm not sure if you're aware, but TCU had the longest winning streak in the country before Iowa State knocked them off on Saturday. What can you say about Coach Rhodes and where this program is elevated under his leadership?
Well, I think it's made tremendous strides. I think he's he's an excellent football coach. He's an excellent person. And we've had this dialogue before. I've known Paul for a long time. When he was a little youngster, I knew his father very well, Cecil, who was a very successful high school coach in the Des Moines area. I think Paul is just right for Iowa State, and has brought an awful lot to that program and to the university as well. Very fine coach.
Coach, Iowa State has been described by some as almost being like a K-State light, in that they run the ball very well, they play good defense, they are well coached. 2-part question. Number 1, would you agree with that assessment? And number 2, does that make them any easier, more difficult to prepare for, knowing that they're kind of like your team?
Well, they are they're a very disciplined football team. They're a very aggressive football team. I think they're a very tough-minded football team. I think they're a very hard-working football team, which you would say that probably doesn't. You can't tell what they do during the week by game day, but I think you really can. And knowing Paul and knowing the approach that they take, and seeing the results of it on the field, you can see that they work diligently. I think they play as hard as anybody that you would play against. I think all those intrinsic things are in place there, and I think they have the attention of their players, and the players have a belief in those values, which I think are, if that's the question, are similar to those values that we have here, and they've been very responsive.
Coach, how do you feel defensively? Because last year it just seems like the pass rush, you had a good defense last season, but it just seemed like the pass rush was lacking a little bit. You had holes in the secondary. This year it's a total 180. How do you feel about the defense this year as opposed to last year? Obviously you have more confidence.
Well, we're a work in progress, I think, still. I think we have managed to produce numbers that would indicate that our pass rush has made improvement. But I don't think we've gotten where we need to be, and I think the numbers may be a little bit misleading in that respect. I mean, I am proud that we have made, or pleased that we've made the progress that we have, and I think that's hopefully is on a continual uprise. But still we're a long ways away.
Coach, what are the challenges that you see with Iowa State's defense, especially their front 7 and Colin and John and everyone else running the football this weekend?
Well, I think just what I said a moment ago. I think they play extremely hard. They're very fundamentally sound, and they're very responsible sound. I mean, everybody's in the place that they're supposed to be, and they don't get out of position. They match up well. I think probably with anybody that they play, being a physical front 7, they've got the 2 all-world linebackers that really deserve, all the accolades that they receive because they play so hard, and and smart as well. I think the experience that they have, all 7 of them working together, has been very, very beneficial for them.
Do you see a challenge with the front four in getting past the offensive line, especially their defensive tackles who just look like they stay there?
Every day is a challenge for us. I assure you, and that Saturday will be no exception whatsoever. Yes, I mean they offer a challenge to virtually anybody they play. Certainly, they will for us.
Does it matter who's starting at quarterback? I heard reports that Jans might not be under center, maybe the other guy. Does it matter, or do you adjust your game plan defensively on whoever starts?
Well, they played Barnett, started him against TCU and won the ball game, and TCU's a good football team. So, there's no doubt in my mind, or at least I don't, I shouldn't speculate, but certainly the anticipation is that he will be back, and I think that's I think they've probably designated that already. He started and played the ball game against us last year and did a nice job, and scrambled a couple of times, brought the ball down, and really hurt us with that. So he's a good young quarterback. He understands the game well and has a good mentality for it. So he'll be and he's kind of that dual type guy, can do both of those things, and they run that kind of offense now that allows him the opportunity to run with the football. So.
Coach, when it comes to Klein and Knott, are they as good a tandem of linebackers as you'll see this year, and what is it about them that stands out? Why have they been so good for a number of years?
Well, I think the things that I mentioned, I don't mean to make it short, but the things that I mentioned before, it really is, in my way of thinking, what makes them so very, very good. I think they are, as I said, they're tremendously talented young guys, and I think that's promoted by the fact that they have a tremendous focus and intensity about the game. Obviously, the experience is a tremendous factor for them. They play extremely hard, and they're intelligent young guys, again, that fit in the system so well, and they can play at maximum speed. I think you see that they play extremely, probably don't have any, better 40 times than a lot of guys, but by the same token, they play extremely fast. I think they play. They play like 4 or 5 guys, anyway, pretty good.
Coach, going back to Iowa State's quarterbacks, Coach Rhodes said they just made a change mainly for leadership. Did you notice a lift in their spirit, or was there doing something different schematically with the different quarterback?
Well, I don't see a great deal of change in what they do. Now, that doesn't mean it's not on the horizon, but they're both young guys that have the ability to run and throw the football. So, and that's their offense is schemed that way. So whether or not there will be some changes, I don't know. I could see them being the same offense with both quarterbacks. But based on what I saw last week in their ball game against TCU, his leadership is there. I'm not there Monday through Friday, so I don't know how that works on their practice field. I would certainly always trust Paul's judgment, so I'm sure he made an appropriate decision. But I don't know the circumstances behind it, so it'd be hard to address.
Coach, you guys haven't been to Ames in a couple of years, and you've never been to Morgantown. So in back-to-back weeks, is there anything unique about that, or does that change the dynamic that your players have been playing in a place that they haven't seen before?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. Again, ask me next Tuesday. I would like to think that's not the case. As we've said, so many times, it's keeping it all between the white lines, and and if you do that, it all looks alike, no matter where you happen to be. I mean, grass is grass, and
I also want to ask, what do you think of the impact that BJ has had on the line of center? Do you think he's kind of been the guy that's helping them get to where they are right now?
Well, I think he's been very beneficial to our offensive line. I think they all work well together and a very cohesive unit. I think that's kind of the nature of being an offensive line and an offensive lineman, but they do that, and I think BJ, because of his experiences a year ago and his willingness to step up and try to lead and his desire to really want what's best for his teammates and his team and being a very team-oriented young guy, I think that's helped him work with his teammates in the offensive line, and his experience from last year and the responsibilities that we put on that position certainly promote what we're talking about and drawing our offensive line together and helping other players out.
Coach, are there any benefits of playing an early game as opposed to a late game, in your opinion?
Kind of depends on where you are. I think I have no issues with it right now, other than it's the game is so orchestrated by TV contracts, that, you see now the game, games are starting at, ridiculous times on both ends, and if you look a couple of years ahead, we'll be playing midnight games and 8 o'clock in the morning, and and that's not what all this is supposed to be about, and it's really it's a headache for fans. We play at 11 o'clock here. You got fans that are coming from western Kansas. That's you don't go to bed at night. You have to drive half the night, to get here in time for for a ball game. There's a lot of things that we're overlooking, with this kind of TV dominance in the game.
Coach, what do you make of Josh Lenz from Iowa State? He had 4 total touchdowns against TCU. Not only did he catch them, he threw one as well. What kind of threat is he, and how do you stop him?
Well, I don't know how you stop him. I know how we'll attempt to. I think he's a very, very fine player, and what I know about him, he's one of those young guys that just works diligently to get himself better. He's a hard worker on the practice field, I'm told. He's got excellent hands, runs very distinctive and good routes, a good leader on his football team as well. Just has all those traits, I think, that are implanted in the Iowa State system.
Iowa State's ranked 25th in the coaches poll and Harris poll for the first time in 10 years, and to top that off, 9 teams in this 10-team league are receiving votes of some sort in all 3 polls. What does that say about this league that not just a year ago so many get written off as expired?
Well, the obvious. I think it says that it's a very competitive league, certainly within and certainly on a national scale as well. I don't know what else you can say about it, but I certainly do believe it's all of that. You look at your schedule, and there aren't any, what do they call them, breathers. There just isn't anybody that's not capable of beating anybody else. Doesn't work that way.
Coach, with Boston Stuyvesant back healthy, how do you, work with that offensive line rotation between going with the 5 guys that have played so well to this point, but then also a guy in Boston that was expected to start the season?
Well, number one is the same way we've always done it, where virtually every youngster, I'd say virtually, meaning not quite 100%, but nearly everyone on our offensive line works at a variety of different positions. And we continue to do that, and therefore, if there is an injury, then we've got a backup in place that can move from one spot to the other, etc. Boston will be a part of a rotation, and not a designated you play 7 plays, you play 7, etc. But he will be certainly on the field and be part of the rotation, and may play in more than one position.
Coach, personally, and I know we're halfway through the season, but how does it feel to have Kansas State back as far as in the mix of top college football? And this is your second time around. You've done it before, but to do it again, is it gratifying to you that that Kansas State is back for the most part, competitive in the Big 12, perhaps even something bigger?
Well, I think you hit it on the head in your opening comment, and that is, we're what, 5 games into the season, and that's 7 games, and you look at our schedule for the next 7 games, and that probably tells you a great deal. I'm always pleased when our youngsters perform well. That certainly hasn't changed. I don't think much about any of the rest of it. Really don't. Don't. So.
2-part question here real quick. First of all, can you... real quick. Did I say something funny? First of all, KU scores first, and then you guys go back and look at the tape and see that TCU only needed about 72 seconds to light up the scoreboard with that long 51-yard bomb there. I know you guys play with a sense of urgency, but you think that maybe opened their eyes a little bit wider?
Well, I hope so. I hope both occasions did. Like I've say so many times, I'm not inside their minds. I mean, I can't read their minds, but it would be you'd have to be totally oblivious to ignore both of those situations and realize what it means to you. So I certainly hope that they understand that.
The second one is there's a lot of defensive numbers out there. You're one of only a handful of teams in the country, though, that's held every opponent to 21 points or fewer so far this season. When it comes down to just looking at the scoreboard, how pleased are you to this particular point in time that, in this era where gobs of points are being given up, that this defense has somewhat stayed the course and been pretty consistent in that way?
Well, again, that's one of those questions to ask me in 7 weeks, because you look at the teams. I mean, the teams that we have left on the table, probably average 100 points a game. So we've still got a lot ahead of us. I'm certainly not disappointed in, our ability to defend the goal line, as readily as we have. But, we're playing a team that's done exactly the same thing, with Iowa State, and wherever we are, they're right there, as far as, if not ahead of us in regards to scoring defense.
So we should expect a shootout this weekend, right?
Who knows?
Coach, what do you see in their secondary, especially with their safeties, including Washington, that present a challenge?
Well, I think they're and it runs, of course, with their entire defense, but I think they're a very talented secondary. They're a very experienced secondary, and they're the young guys that compete. I mean, as does their total defense, but they line up, and it doesn't doesn't really matter who they line up against. They're gonna be competitive, and so I mean they're in your shoulder pads, from the snap until the whistle blows. They're good players, really good.
Coach, we talked a little bit earlier about the turnover margin and you guys being one of the best in the country last year. Well, obviously a big part of that was you gave up fewer turnovers than any other team, by quite a bit fewer than most teams.
Mm-hmm.
I know you talked about diligence and toughness and things like that, and just not giving the ball up. But what does that look like in practice? Why are your teams so much better than so many other teams at that? Like, what does that look like specifically during practice and things like that?
Well, I just think there's as far as the not turning the ball over, it's kind of like I said, I think our players have the appropriate mindset about it. Sometimes you can be, you can fret about it too much, and you're too, I don't know what the right word is or right phrase, but you become a little paranoid about it, and I don't think our players are. I think there's just the right amount of attention that's put upon it. But as I said, we practice diligently towards that end, and our players. I mean, you have to have a mindset that provides the kind of discipline and focus that it takes in order to do that. Now, part of that stat that you're talking about in turnover margin, last year we were very limited in number of turnovers. But we didn't create as many turnovers. This year, you know, we've created more turnovers, which is, you know, helped that statistic, you know, like getting we get 5 this last week. So that's, you know, that's a very substantial number in a ball game. And, you know, it's hard to win a ball game when you've done, that's kind of like TCU gave up 5 to Iowa State last week. Pretty hard to win a ball game. And of their 5, 3 of them were directly related to touchdowns, and it's 21-point swing. So.
Coach Snyder, the former defensive coordinator at Penn State, Jerry Sandusky, was sentenced today. I know you've addressed this situation a few times as it's developed. What was your reaction to maybe the news this morning?
I don't have any reaction. I didn't see the news. I didn't hear the news. It's you know, I've said 100 times. It's just a very tragic environment and a very tragic situation that took place, and everybody's, you know, tremendously saddened by it.
Paul Rhodes is 18-2 when leading at halftime, and that's been kind of a theme. You have a similar statistic that's lopsided. When leading at halftime, you have a very good winning chance percentage. That's been a theme this year. Getting out to early starts and not having to play from behind, kind of like last year was the same thing, getting down by 14 points constantly and then fighting your way back. How important is getting a halftime lead, especially on the road this next weekend?
Well, you know, it's always significant whether you're on the road or playing at home. And you know, I've said 3 or 4 weeks ago I quit talking about it because no matter what I said, you know, as much to do as I made about it, you know, we didn't seem to, on those occasions, we didn't seem to get off to a very good start. So it had, you know, maybe a counterproductive impact on our players. But yes, it's significant. You know, and I remember playing up there and getting off to a 21 or 28 point deficit and coming back. You, the statistician, what was the score?
28-7.
28-7 at halftime, so a 21-point ball game. And fortunately, very fortunately, came back to. I'm going to hire him. You know,
No, you're not.
So anyway, that's, yeah, it's significant. Truly you know, obviously makes a difference.
All right, guys, that'll do it for today. Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.